What is up, everyone? Dangerous here, and welcome to my video where I analyze an intermediate speedrunner in Super Mario Odyssey. Now, this video is the second part in a series that I'm doing. If you need some tips more catered to a beginner, make sure you check out the video that I did on that. And make sure that you subscribe to the channel just to stay in touch with all of my Super Mario Odyssey speedrunning resources. Now, that being said, let's get right to our 105 speedrun. So this is Mini Beast, and Mini Beast has a PB of 105.29. So we've been talking a lot about lines, and we're talking about movement. We've been talking about understanding the controls. I think that once you get to 105, you know, anywhere between like 107 and 104, I think that you have no problem with the controls. I think at this point you understand what it is that you need to be doing with your controls and your buttons, and you've honed in on that really simply. This is when you might start adjusting into some more advanced movement tech. This is when you might start exploring with things like roll cancels and more spin pounds more consistently. Going for some of those straighter lines is really what's going to be important at this level. I think that, you know, learning the movement that gets you from one place to the next and just dialing it in. Like, at this point, what you should be doing in your head is just automating the run. There should be no point in this run where you question, what movement choice do I make for this next section? There should be no question in your mind. You should have in your mind the exact path that you're going to take to get from point A to point B to point C to point D, all the way to point Z. You should have that stuff planned out like muscle memory, like clockwork in your head always. If there's ever a point in the run where you have to question what you're doing, it should be quenched by the time we get to a 105. I think that if you're still having those doubts, it is worth your practice to go to that section and A, watch somebody at your skill level do it, and B, figure out what you want to do every single time. You should be doing that every single time. The only time that you aren't going to do it every single time is when you finally upgrade to something faster. So I think that we're probably not going to see a whole lot of questioning your choices. There's not going to be a whole lot of hesitating in this 105. I think that most of the time loss is going to come from taking inoptimal lines and maybe just not doing the most optimal tricks. That's my guess, but we'll see. So we got DSTA going. I think that this honestly is something that you can probably implement at this level. Mini Beast is leaving Cascade at 558 in their previous PV, which means that you can get the offset going like right away as soon as you get into the game. If you set your offset for that and you're consistent, then you will get the seed to grow just fine. Exclamation mark DSTA, I made a video on this. I can tell by their wake up time that they play on physical. Now that's nothing inherently wrong with that. But if you are looking to go for world records, if you are looking to get into sub-hour especially, like, digital is free time save. I realize that it's more money, but that is something that you can definitely start investing in. Now, you'll notice that that line was just a tiny bit better than Cody's. Instead of going around and up the ramp, they decided to kind of cut the corner of the ramp and jump up the stairs, which is faster, but not the fastest. Right? So the line is a little bit cleaner, therefore it's a little bit crispier looking than Cody's line. DSS? Didn't think so. I'd be honestly pretty surprised if you went for DSS. Like I said, probably the biggest time loss in these runs is just a little bit of a lack of consistency, missing some tricks, but probably not taking the big risky strats either, probably not going for the absolute hardest tricks. And decent Cascade, they're actually going to be ahead out of their PB, I think. So they'll make their time window for DSTA no problem. And like I mentioned in my video, I would say once you get sub 6-minute times is when you can start going for DSTA consistently. 548 is perfect for like barely an offset at all, and it'll still work. I will give you a little bit of a hint. I know it's very tempting to do things out of a spin pound. Typically, if you're just going in a straight line and there's no hill for you to gain some speed on, the fastest play is always actually going to be to just roll. That's true for Cascade and that's true for Sand. So instead of doing the spin pound into the roll at the very beginning of those kingdoms, just roll. in only very fringe situations will you actually save time with the spin pound, and that's because you get like a perfect frame spin pound, essentially. Also, I don't know if you do too many roll cancels. I haven't really been paying attention to any roll cancels yet, Mini Beast, but if you roll cancel towards that door as you exit it, you'll end up opening the door a little bit faster. Okay, you do roll cancels. I can see now. Let's see here. I have a feeling that Mini Beast is going to go for Dram here. Going for the regular Dram. And gets it. Nice. Not going for single bill, but I don't blame you for that. And that was a strat I actually learned about recently. It kind of like went over my head because I never had to spawn a new bullet bill, but if you like you stay up on top of that platform on the right side, it'll actually spawn another bullet bill. Whereas if you go directly towards the moon, then another one might not spawn. But I can already see right out of the gate the difference between like the lines that Mini Beast is taking versus lines that Clearfirst are taking. Mini Beast has a lot more confidence in the movement that he's doing. You can tell that the route is no problem. It's like second nature. I would say that the biggest moments of time loss here are mostly due to just kind of fumbling, really. Knowing what to do, but just accidentally missing the mark on being able to accomplish it. And I think that every little piece of movement does have finesse. Like, you mess it up enough times to realize the thing that you do need to do to make it work 100% of the time. Like, I think the tricks get a reputation for being something that you need to have consistency for, but movement also is as well, right? And eventually, everything that you do just has like an 100% consistency rate, and the consistency goes up in general as a result of that, right? All right. I don't suspect we'll see a lake clip here. I highly doubt it. I'd be surprised if we saw a lake clip here. And now we're talking about lines, right? The path you chose, I don't know if this is what you always do, but the path you chose to get to that spot just now was to kind of roll in one direction and then change your direction and dive towards the spot. You can kind of like nudge the Odyssey without bonking and roll directly towards that ground pound spot without having to dive at all. So just cleaning up your lines a little bit, I think. And he's going for lake clip. Oh boy, okay. Interesting. Hey, and now I don't think that people always ask me questions like, what point of my, like, what time should I get before I do X trick? I don't think it's as simple as that. I don't really think that there is a concrete answer. You know, 102 is the time that you need to have in order to lake clip. 101 is the time you need to have to do DSS. That's dumb, right? It's really stupid to think of it like that because, you know, DSS saves 9 seconds. And if you go into your practice and you're a wizard at DSS and you have a 104, you could be saving 9 seconds by putting it in your runs, right? It has nothing to do with the time that you're getting. It has everything to do with your consistency with the individual trick in a run situation. That's important too. In a run situation, if you're killing all of your runs to the one trick, don't do that anymore. Don't do it anymore. But if you're getting like 50% of your runs past it, and it's something at the beginning of the game, like, why not, you know? If you can late clip within the first 5 seconds like that, it's still saving time over not doing it at all. So yeah, good Lake Kingdom. And even though it did take Cappy a couple tries to finally maneuver into the corner, probably only took about 4 or 5 seconds, which means that they saved about 2 over not doing it at all. So, leaving Lake at a 13:58. And the very top runners, the very world record like contender runners, are leaving Lake sub 13 now, but just barely. So, playing within a minute in the first 15, which makes sense, right? You and Cody actually had a very similar problem there. And that was just maintaining your speed. And I don't know if that's a random thing for you, but I think it probably has something to do with just running into the terrain in the wrong way. I do 5 roll boosts, and one of those roll boosts is like the initial roll to get Mario moving. So 1 and then 4 roll boosts, and I'm just beelining it for the rock essentially, and then I curve to the left after I grab it. And that makes sure that I don't run into anything that's going to kill my momentum, and it works every time. Hello, post-production dangers here. So as I was watching this back, I realized the actual problem. Now, Mini Beast actually has a really good line here, but what he's doing is he's running. After he grabs the rock, he runs from the rock to the bunny, and in this game, if you jump, you maintain your momentum much, much easier. So instead of running to the left and running forward like Mini Beast did, he had really good lines, but what you could do instead is you can jump. Make a little triangle, jump to the left, and then jump forward. By doing that, you will maintain all of your momentum from your initial rolling speed. You will go super fast, and you won't slow down at all. And I think in general, that's a good thing to keep in mind, is that Mario will slow down really fast if he's on the ground. So if you want to maintain your momentum, at least a decent momentum, jumping can be your friend, because Mario will maintain his momentum as long as you keep buffering jumps. But you are going for the lake clip route, or sorry, the wooded nut clip route here. There's so many ways to set up your camera to make sure that you get that. You just have to do whatever you want. Also, smart idea, something that I never had to deal with and I never really knew about, but diving back towards the camera is a surefire way to make it up the wall, because if you don't get enough height from your dive, you can still bonk against the rock wall, so very smart idea there. Obviously not the fastest, but it is the safest. And no problems there. And I know at 105 level, like I think this is when I started using the nut clip route as well, like around 105, 104. If you get past that, your heart is racing like a mile a minute. Like that part of the run is just absolute torture mentally. Making it past that is like a godsend. So the rest of Wooded becomes very difficult as a result of that, because you know you've done it. You're like, oh, this is for real now. Yeah, some people choose to go Wooded first instead of Lake first so that they can get Wooded out of the way. Not a bad idea. You'd just basically be spending 3.5 extra minutes less getting to Nut Clip, which is a strat you can use if you're not fully comfortable with getting past there. And so Mini Beast is taking only one step away from the most optimal route that you can take in this kingdom. I don't think the Mini Beast is going to fight Spirit. I think that they're going to go for the Spiritless route. The one step up would be doing the tree route and skipping the Story Moon. I don't think that you'd need to do that necessarily. It's a little bit harder to make that optimal. You can see the Mini Beast is taking essentially the most optimal route, -1 adjustment. And all of their time loss is just coming from adjustments. Coming from... I don't want to call it sloppiness, but it is a little bit of sloppiness. Like, they know where they're going, they know what they're doing, but they're just not performing it with like the cutting edge precision that you see in the top 10. Basically, the route is the same. It's just that, you know, there's just a couple of extra movements here and there and everywhere to get the job done. Like maybe they're throwing Cappy one extra time to make a dive. In the case of coming around this corner, for example, watch this, right? Probably could have made that if you had maintained your speed a little bit. You probably could have made that cap dive up to that ledge and maintained your speed. And now here, you weren't able to get a cap return because you just didn't use the right kind of jump, right? All of those things could have combined together to probably save you about 2 seconds if you had just kind of maintained your momentum and had a little bit of faith in that. But that's the kind of thing that I mean, is like that's what is compounding the time difference between having like a 100, 101, and a 105 is those things there. Now, Cody did have a little bit of trouble with their cycle in here, and as I mentioned, it doesn't really matter how fast you go, as long as the water level's still really high up. Mini Beast actually just barely made that. I would say that you probably want to tighten up just a little bit so that you're arriving in the water before it starts draining, just so that you don't run into that kind of issue again. But, you know, observing that tells me that you probably do make it about 50% of the time, maybe more. It's just a matter of like making sure that it's more than that, I guess. Tightening up those movements. It's definitely better to arrive in the water when it's still up high rather than when it's lower, because then you have more time to react. All right. I have a pretty good feeling that we're going to see the fight go well. I think that the boss fights at a 105 level don't really give you any troubles anymore. The only one that you're going to do differently at this level than perhaps at the very top level is the Robo Brutal fight. That might be one that you take some creative liberties in just playing it a little bit safer. The angle that you had got that hat, it always sucks to get the middle one. That's why you try and get Strab Manip. That's why Strab Manip is so important. Getting the angle on that last one, really getting around behind Bowser so that you can get the Manip is kind of tough if you get the middle hat, right? So I don't blame you for that. The second phase wasn't the cleanest, but that's okay. And now Lost Kingdom. Oh boy. Okay, let's see. Also approaching the tree from the side, just like Cody did. And didn't get quite the height on their jump that they maybe could have to get up on this ledge. If I had to guess, and, you know, Mini Beast, maybe you can correct me on this. When I had a 105, when I had like a 103 to a 107, I think I was kind of like banking on making it up to the top ledge, but I would only make it up there like 50% of the time, and I didn't really know why. I would say you probably took this a little bit safer than you needed to. But what that signals to me, that movement choice that you just made there, is that you have spent a lot of time blowing up the first block but not the second, and being frustrated with that not working. So you're taking something a little bit simpler and a little bit safer in order to always make it work. And I kind of bit you in the butt there because he actually just missed the block entirely. But okay, that's good. Kind of what I was trying. I don't know if Cody's still here, but that's kind of what I was trying to say. Just kind of like come out a little bit wider, do a cap bounce, and then dive in afterwards. That's probably the safest thing you can do there. So good call on that. And no cage triple. And I think that in this range, it is actually interesting to me that, you know, Lake Clip is in your arsenal, but cage triple isn't. But I guess that's just the boomer in me talking, because cage triple has been around a lot longer than Lake Clip has. You go for the things that you're comfortable with. And if cage triple and like movement tech that is focused around maintaining your speed is not in your arsenal as confidently as a trick with a setup like Lake Clip, then it makes sense that you would go for that instead. See, everybody's got a story, and it's different for everybody, right? That's why I can't say at 104, do nut clip. At 103, do Lake Clip. Like, it can't be that simple because everybody plays the game differently, right? So it's all about your own feel. You have to make that judgment call for yourself. But if you're looking from outside perspective, looking in, and you're asking, hey, do you think I should do nut clip? And I see you do nut clip and you get it like once every 20 times, my answer is going to be no. You know what I mean? My answer is going to be practice nut clip first, please. Let's see here. Your Wiggler lines look pretty good. I think that there's nothing really that difficult about making the Wiggler go into the spot that you need them to. You got a good pattern for missing the beginning part. And I think that you definitely take the right approach to killing the Wiggler for sure. Is just kind of like aiming towards the first section and then just like holding your cursor there while he walks through your aim. That's, I mean, the easiest and best way to do it. The Wiggler's RNG, Lumionyx, yeah. But the strategy you take to mitigate the RNG is always going to be the same. Let's see what movement you go for here. See, this is what I do. You could definitely have gotten your spin pound off a little bit faster, but that is my consistent movement choice to get around the corners. Because doing the roll cancel, if you lose your speed, you lose way more time than just doing that, which is like 100% consistent. Oh no. Okay, here. I'm going to correct this mistake for you once and for all. Ready? When you get to here, point your camera directly downwards. Point your camera so that you're facing up or facing down from up above Mario. The reason you're diving through the moon here is because it's not on camera yet, right? If you point your camera so that it is up above Mario like this, the moon will come onto the camera before you get there, and you'll never have that problem again. If it's not on screen, it doesn't exist. That, for some reason, is a property of Super Mario Odyssey for a lot of things. So just get that moon on camera as fast as you can. And the most consistent place to do it is here. Like, as soon as you're coming up from this wire, tilt your camera now, and then just do the movement, because you don't need to actually move the left stick for any of this. So just move your camera as soon as you come out of that wire, and you'll never have this problem again. He's going for the clip. That's clean. That looks great. Yep. Another thing to say about tricks is that you have to be conscious of like what's worth it, right? You have to analyze the risk factor involved in tricks. Doing the snow clip there is virtually zero risk. As long as you know which way you're supposed to be roll boosting, you'll never miss the dives into the door. And if you miss the clip, you don't really lose very much time either. Like it's one of those tricks that there's no harm in trying to go for it. Like if you have absolutely zero idea of how to do it, then maybe it's not worth it. But like if you have at least a shred of how to do it, you might as well try, because you're not going to lose that much time doing that. Also, we are seeing our first snow dram. It's weird that like this is definitely one of those things that gets better as you get better, because you have more of an understanding of like the advanced fundamentals like vectoring. And vectoring can be scary if you don't have a full grasp on like still getting your good cap bounces and stuff like that. But when you do vector twice or sometimes even 3 times for Snowdram, it makes the trick so much easier. So that was a little bit sketchy to watch, but you did make it first try, no problem. And I'd like to review that my prediction at the beginning of this run was that the route was going to be solid. They're going to know where to go. It's just going to be the time loss is going to come from not doing certain tricks, which we are seeing, and also not from having consistent, solid movement. Just a little bit of sloppiness in places. And honestly, that's what we're seeing as well. Like doing Snowdram, the Snowdram trick worked just fine, but they probably lost about the same amount of time that it would save just trying to get up on top of the Odyssey in the first place. You know what I mean? Like that's where the time loss is going to come from somebody who has a 105, 104, 103 to somebody who has a 100. That's where it's going to come from. Is just like the confidence in the movement and not quite as sharp lines. And we are seeing that a lot here. So consider how big the fish's hitbox is here, right? This first one, you kind of have to swim right at it, beeline for it. But you notice how far this fish is going. But like right here, you could have shook like right at the edge, like basically in between the 2 sand piles, rather than like letting your fish go all the way out past it. And you did it kind of on the 3rd one as well, so that would have saved so much time just from that. Yeah, if you miss, it's not a big deal. Basically what you're looking for is like the seaweed coming out of the grass, or coming out of the sand, right? If they pop up, you did it right. And you can definitely shake a lot earlier to make that happen. Now it's luncheon time. Luncheon's great, smile. I'm curious what you do go for here, because luncheon is just one big trick. Oh, okay. Yeah, you know, safe choice. There have definitely been a ton of times where I've tried to do the dive up on that platform, just not had enough height. So, good choice. I think this is a really small thing. You absolutely did the fight just the way that you're supposed to. But if you want to save like 0.2 seconds on this fight, if you really want to do something that small, look how far away you're standing from Spirit right now. You've got like a Mario and a half worth of distance in between Spirit and Mario right now. If you stand right here, where the shadow is, and jump as soon as he reels back like that, you'll hit him, and he won't move at all. He won't need to. So you'll save like 0.2 by doing that in every phase instead. Something I am noticing about Mini Beast's play too is that, you know, the spin pounds are there, but they're not there always. Like, if you watch a top level runner, anytime you have to do a ground pound, they're always going to pick the ground pound. Like 10 out of 10 times, with like a few very rare exceptions. Whereas this is kind of a combination. You're picking the ones that you're comfortable with doing. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that is one area that you can absolutely improve, is like learning how to get those tiny little spin buffers in everywhere, so that all of your spin pounds, all of your ground pounds are saving 0.2 essentially, or I think it's even like 0.5 for like a ground pound animation. Mini Beast definitely has a better control of the camera than Cody did, and that honestly doesn't surprise me at all. The camera is very underrated, but it's also really hard to get a control of. It's not just something that you can be like, hey, just be better with the camera, forehead. It's really hard to know how to use your controls efficiently, because like during any part of movement, you're gonna be you're gonna be doing like a 100 inputs a minute kind of thing. Like there's gonna be inputs going on all the time, so throwing in the camera in there as well is also kind of hecked. See the fall there? That's the fastest thing you can do, because the cutscene will actually start playing as soon as you hit the ground. All right, let's go. Bowser's Kingdom. Like I mentioned, big platforming stage. This kind of puts all of your platforming knowledge to a head. And they go for the bird dram. That might actually miss. Yeah, it did. Cappy's kind of an asshole with this. The reason I don't do bird dram specifically in any percent is because there's a spiny there, and Cappy will almost always prefer the spiny if you don't get it quite right. Yeah, so you can see from that movement just now, you can see that Mini Beast, again, knows exactly where to go and what to do. They're just taking a little bit more of a safer approach to the things that they're doing. Like, they waited for the square where the ogre is going to drop his block. They waited for that to appear fully before moving out of the way. And that's probably as a result of having Mario, like, roll past the ogre several times where he's like not recognized that he's there and the ogres had to turn and all that. Like, that sucks for sure. Something that's really important to consider is that, like, you can only learn so much all at once, right? It's easy to kind of nitpick and point out the things that you might not be doing right, but that's just because, like, you have to work at your own pace and you have to learn things one at a time. Like, it's intuitive to me how to do shards because I have had so many game hours put into it that I've been able to get around to practicing the fastest way to do it. And sometimes that's all it takes, is like, if you know that your weakest point in the run, for example, is the way that you do the shards, if it's probably because you're kind of winging it, right? I mentioned this before. If you feel like you're winging a section and you don't know exactly how you're going to do it 100% of the time, that is one of the spaces in the run that you should focus your practice energy into. If there ever comes a point in the run where you're like, I kind of just do this and hope for the best, if that's your answer, it's not good enough. Your answer should be, I will do this series of jumps and dives in this order at this time. I will make this cycle. I will. You should be saying I will, basically. You should always just know what you're going to do, always. Because if you know, then you know exactly how much time it's going to take. And if you don't know, you should learn a way to know, I guess. Are there beginner-friendly any percent routes? Yes, there is. There's a well-documented one. There actually was a PowerPoint made of it recently by a community member, and that resource is available in the Discord. If you want to learn by watching videos, Small Ant has a tutorial on that. I would say that there are some strats in the Small Ant tutorial that are a little bit outdated, but Tomshi actually has made a video that kind of like complements that video and just goes over the things that you should learn as well. I think that you watch the Tomshi video first. Tomshi says this, and this are outdated from the Small Ant tutorial. Then you go watch the Small Ant tutorial, and then you'll know, like, oh yeah, this is what Tom was talking about. So I'll just kind of insert Tom's knowledge into this video. Also, taking the creative liberty to go around the safe way. Honestly, can't blame you for stuff like that. Like, we're talking jokingly about adding things like 2DSS into the runs, right? 2DSS is a trick that 2DSS is a trick that, is at the very end of the run, saves 7 seconds, and could kill it completely. But at levels like this, You don't even think about stuff like that. You just think about, like, I have to jump over this hole. And if I don't make it over this hole, then the run is over. You know what I mean? Like, it's still a trick, basically. It's just, like, you have to cut your losses. Like, you just have to do the consistent thing sometimes. And I don't blame you for that. Mini Beast does go for the birdless strat here. And the Goryuya setup. That's good. Very nice. I think that that's easier, honestly. There was a small ant version where you, like, land on the flap. Which one? Let me see. Land on this flap instead and, like, time a ground pound properly. It's sketchy. It's also slower. So I do recommend, if you're going to start doing birdless mech, to land on this one and do the Goryuya method. But you have to have a really good sense of spin pounds to do that, though. Also going for target acquired. Let's see. Also, I need to have a really good common sense for spin pounds as well to go for something like that. And I think that spin pounds is a movement tech all on its own. And you should kind of very gently add spin pounds into your runs, because trying to implement them just everywhere is going to be a mess, because some spin pounds are harder to get off than others. That one, probably on the scale from 1 to 10, that spin pound for target acquired, probably closer to like an 8 or 9. The spin pound for like salt pile triple without the camera manip, or not salt pile triple, like the salt island without the camera manip, probably like an 8 or a 9. Like, just judging the difficulty of your spin pounds and kind of adding them in as they become more comfortable is really important. Yeah, so honestly, that's one of those things that I've heard people say. I've heard that same excuse for, like, scooter clip. You know, just because it's fast doesn't necessarily mean it's harder, right? Sometimes going for the quote-unquote easy or quote-unquote beginner strat is actually not easy at all. Like, sometimes you can oddly find something that's faster, easier to do. And that's, I mean, that's good. Now here, I'm going to criticize you. You did not need to long jump there. The moon gives you heightened gravity on everything. And you see how you got that roll boost to get up on that top platform? That roll boost over the moon snake would have also done the same thing. You would have been able to get enough height there to make that. You wouldn't need to long jump, and you could save yourself like another second right there. But it's all about having faith in that movement. Also, I don't know why that one didn't work. The game is trolling you, dude. But honestly, like I mentioned with Cody's run, this is the kingdom that, like, from the time that I had a 530 to, like, the time that I have, like, a 506 or 508 now, I don't really know how I improved. I really just don't know. It's just kind of happened gradually over time. So it's really hard to pinpoint those things, because, like, the moon gravity really shifts your perception of everything. Does that ground pound save time? Entering the wedding hall. Oh, typically what you want to do is roll forward. The only time that you want to do a spin pound forward is if you aren't traveling very far. Like, if you're traveling a distance that is less than, like, 2 roll boosts, or you have a hill to help you at the beginning. Like, think Cap Kingdom at the beginning. That's a spin pound. When you're coming around the corner in Snow Kingdom, when you get the chest moon and you're making your way over to the one that's buried underneath the snow, that's a spin pound. If you have a hill to help you, spin pound. Otherwise, just roll forward. So, I mean, this escape is going pristinely. Your pillar room really doesn't change. Unless you're Miles Pro, once you get to, like, 104, 105 onwards, your pillar room is basically going to be as good as it's going to be, I think. 105.29, Mini Beast, new PB. Very good. So, interesting takeaways here. I think that it's pretty clear that Mini Beast knows what the route is, right? It's fine-tuning, it's building consistency on the movement that they're currently doing. And, you know, some of the mistakes that we're seeing in this run are basically just kind of like blunders. It's almost like, you know, when you're playing basketball and you dribble the ball and you bounce it off of your toe. That sucks, right? You don't see professionals do that very much. Like, you don't see people in the NBA doing that at all, because they're the professionals, right? That's what they do. But it's something that happens commonly to, you know, players who do it because, you know, it's just a mistake that can be commonly made with your general overall movement. That's kind of what the movement here is like. It's, you know what to do, you know how to perform the movement that you're supposed to be doing. It's just sometimes you bounce the basketball off your toe and it goes off and you have to go get it. Like, that's basically what this bracket, this skill bracket is all about. So it's all about just like learning how to get over that and learning to tighten it up and not make those mistakes. But otherwise, you did like probably about 75% of the tricks that top runners do nowadays. So, you're well on your way. Your summit best is a 103.35, and your PB now is a 105.29. So you're within 2 minutes. And I think that like that's pretty average. That's pretty darn average for somebody who has a 105 to be about 2 minutes to 1.5 minutes off their summit best. That's pretty normal. Once we get into 100 and 101 territory and into sub-hour and stuff like that, that's when you start to see a huge change, and the consistency really has to tighten up because there's way less margin for error. And that's why when we get into Doors PB, I'm going to be a lot more of a stickler on the little things, because it really will come down to that. It really will come down to that. And that about covers it. Thank you guys so much for watching part 2 of this boot camp series. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned for part 3, where I analyze a more advanced runner and critique some of the small little tweaks that they can make to their game to get to the next step. And I'll see you next time. Cheers.